Hello, I'm Danusia Malina-Derben, and you're listening to Parents Who Think. Today, I'm joined by journalist and father Matt Blake for a grounded conversation about what it really means to share care, emotionally, practically, and systemically. We talk about what shifts when you split parenting 50-50, not just in your calendar, but in your identity. Matt speaks openly about the career trade-offs, the cultural assumptions that still sideline dads, and how his definition of success has changed since becoming a father. Let's get into it. Hello, Matt. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
How did you sort equal share? I mean, I'm assuming it's equal.
Yeah, it's 100%. Just sort of background. Ever since she was born, or at least since her mother came off maternity leave, because her mum runs her own business, and I run mine, of course, as a journalist and writer. So from the very beginning, we divided it up down the middle. So when we were together, it was she would have Monday. Once daughter went to nursery, her mother had her on Mondays, I had her on Fridays, and the 3 days in between she went to nursery. And after we split, we just carried that on. So I've continued to take Fridays off. As a freelance writer, I can juggle work to do that, and sometimes I'm working at night. But
yes,
I'm never going to get that time back, and I just feel it's worth taking the financial or the career hit in order to be with her. I think it will pay off in the long term. I hope it will.
Talk to me about the career hit. What do you see?
It just means taking on less work. Sometimes you have to say no to things because you just can't. If your deadline's on a Friday afternoon, sometimes it's a really tight turnaround and there's not enough evenings to get it done. You just have to say no. And that's tough. And also, if there's ever been an opportunity to take a full-time job in the whole, a few opportunities have come up and I've said no, because I think having kids, and again, I'm sure every parent would agree with this, but this is actually such a parenting cliche, but it changed my entire perspective on life and my career. I think before she was born, I had, again, like lots of people, I was really into my career. I was really into becoming the great kind of, great journalist and getting my name in all the big newspapers and magazines. And I had plenty of success in doing that. But I think just having her, I felt it was a no-brainer to put myself. And don't get me wrong, that it's not a completely selfless act either, of course, because I want to do right by her. And that is good for me, I think, if she's happy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely makes sense. So talk to me about the journalist you. Where was he? What's changed with him? Because you've not lost your ambition, have you?
No. It's just feel like before she was born, I was the most important thing in my life. Your identity is really, really wrapped up in your career as a journalist because it's your name. And often if you're a feature writer, as I now am, you tie up a lot of your own personality or try to in your work. It's a projection of yourself. I think maybe I've just switched my focus, rather than the relentless chase of the story, constantly trying to work out angles, new ways of telling a story, new stories to tell. I still do that, but, I want her story to shine. Is that too cheesy a way of putting it?
No. It sounds like you have a bigger story that's a running story.
Yeah. And it's the most important story I'll ever, again, I hear myself saying this out of body, but I think her story is the most important story I'll ever tell. And I'm not alone in telling it, of course. She will tell it ultimately, but and her mother and the other people around her too, in our family are, we want to tell her story and we want her to tell her story and give her the tools to do it.
It makes complete sense. So much has changed in you, your identity, and what you see as important now is very different than maybe 5 years ago.
Absolutely. I'm no longer just a one-man band. I'm not just a journalist. I'm a dad there as well. And these are two things that are the two most fundamental sort of elements to my sense of self, I suppose.
Do you think becoming a father has actually changed you as a journalist in terms of how you come to, features, how you write?
I've started writing about being a dad a bit. Has it changed my journalism? My journalism is always sort of focused around people and kind of why people, men especially, do the things that they do, make the choices that they make in life, I suppose. And I think that's probably amplified how I sort of see people and the way that we interact with each other, which is the most, I suppose, that's the most important part of life. And what is life without the people we bounce it up against?
Yeah. So in reporting on fatherhood in some ways, it sounds like it has intensified your interest in why people, particularly men, behave as they do.
Absolutely. And a lot of that has to do with, I become more interested in what makes a person, as I am currently in the process of like jointly trying to make one. The journalism kind of does give you the opportunity to sort of delve deeper into those issues of identity, really, and sort of sense of self. I found myself doing more mental health writing as well. There was a phase, you may remember, where sort of the concept of toxic masculinity became very fashionable in the media, and it's still being talked about. I think it's sort of started to dissolve a little bit now as the conversation has moved on. But this sense that men, should only show one emotion, and that's anger, and all the others should be buried. That kind of cliche, the old cliche of toxic masculinity, and where that comes from.
I had a hunch about Matt's changed views on what success is in his life. Here's my clumsy segue into this topic. When we build a human being, what is the outcome that you're looking for? Are you looking for someone that's got agency, self-esteem? Or for some people, they're looking for, they've got a professional job, they're employed, they're others, they wouldn't care about. It's not that. So metrics of success, really.
I mean, I suppose it depends on your definition of like success, doesn't it? I suppose, especially success in life, and also success as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think for me, the bottom line is to build a child who will grow to ultimately trust herself, trust her decisions, her choices, and who she is as a person, I think. I mean, how you do that is a whole, there's an entire book's been written on this, and I'm far from the expert. I've made mistakes, I've had complaints, but that's, I think, I don't know, in my humble opinion, I suppose that's the secret, really, isn't it? It's about teaching a child to trust him or herself.
Would you be saying that if you had a son?
I think I would. I mean, if we're talking about how children treat other children, or how boys treat, or how young men treat young women, for example, it's a slightly different conversation. It requires quite specific guidance.
Well, I'm picking up, though, that actually your daughter gets to focus on trusting herself, whereas a son, your focus goes over to how he will treat others as opposed to how he will treat himself.
Maybe you're right. And I'm glad that you've called me out on that, because I think as a father of a daughter, I am perhaps unjustly, I don't want to say fixated, but I think I do worry about things like young people's, it sounds so stodgy, but young people's relationship with sex, for example. Consent is not something I have to teach her now, but it's something I'm really thinking about how I'm going to tackle that when the time comes.
But you will in 10 years and maybe 8.
Yeah.
And maybe even in primary school.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? In a age appropriate way, consent comes up so early. Even when, if they don't want to hug, when someone says, "Oh, come over here," and they're like, "Ooh, I really don't want to." And it's whether you say, go on, give that nice lady in the supermarket a hug. Or she's just touched you, and said, "Oh, isn't she pretty?" or whatever. Actually, it's like, how do we teach our daughters to say, "No, I don't want my hair smooth, thank you." And I don't want to be called cute.
Well, the truth is, my daughter already has spent many strong opinions of her own about what she wants to wear, where she wants to be, who she wants to hang out with.
Yay!
My job is just to guide her, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me of some struggles where you have had to prove that you are as involved to your daughter's upbringing as perhaps it's assumed her mother is.
It's an interesting one, and it's tricky. It's something that it comes up all the time. And I mean, there's so many directions I could go in this. But I mean, since we split up, our daughter, as she's grown over the last 2 years, has become more and more aware of her situation. And it's been really interesting seeing how that's developed, especially at nursery. Like, for example, her teachers, they always give feedback at the gates and pick up, of course. And, they'll say, not that long ago, they said, she was straw polling her classmates to find out if their mummies and daddies don't live together as well. Trying to understand her place in the context of her world. And she very regularly, especially when she gets upset, she'll use this. And in a way, it's quite nice to see my child trying to manipulate me because, it shows a certain level of cognitive development, I suppose. But she'll say, on a sadder moment, she'll say, I really want mummy and daddy to live together.
Yes.
Or she'll say, I want to live at mummy's. I don't want to live with daddy anymore. I only want to live with mummy. And I assume, hope that she says that to her mum as well about me. But it's difficult, navigating that, certainly. And as any parent in the situation would agree. As I said, we've always shared care 50-50, half a week each and every other weekend. However, our mother's planning to leave London, and we agreed that our daughter should go to primary school near me. And you have to, of course, you can only choose one address. You have to prove that she lives at that address, and that means finding, documentation with her name and address on it. The only ways of doing that are child benefit or the GP. And so I went down to the GP, and I had to register her with my GP, and I couldn't believe how difficult it was. I was on the phone to them twice a week for at least a month and a half. In the end, I had to get her mother to write a letter. It's called a letter of surrender, I think, which in itself is loaded, doesn't it? Where she said that she's happy for our daughter to use my address for the school. She had to come down to the GP's in person with her passport, and he had to bring the birth certificate with both of our names on in order to prove I am A, her dad, and B, that she had to give her permission effectively to change GPs. And I asked the GP about this, and she said, no, it wouldn't be the same if it were the other way around. So that in that sense, there's still, I would argue, some way to go when it comes to giving. I don't want to sound too far for justice about this because, well, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? But and look, mums and women have a hard enough time in society as it is. We need to be sitting here moaning about not being able to sign or struggling to sign my daughter up to a GP sounds a bit, but it was hard. It was hard getting the GP to accept my daughter as living with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's indicative of the kind of way that children are assumed to be the almost property of and responsibility of women, their mothers, and has an adverse effect on women for a start.
Of course it does.
Of course, but also men. And so you having to, somehow try to get around navigate a system that actually is built to assume that it's actually all the mother.
And it does feel a bit sometimes like it's quite difficult to father to be accepted as the co-parent, should I say, rather than, I mean, it's easy to be the co-parent. You just have to make a decision, be with the mother. But, it's the same when I'd take the child to the playground. I still get the odd kind of, people still say, and it's not just other mums, it's, people all the time will say, oh, is it your day off today? You're not working today, are you? I don't believe that many mothers get asked that question. They should be asked that question, I suppose. If you're asking a father, you should ask a mother too. Is it, the assumption is that you're not the primary caregiver. You're just having a day off to be a dad. You're playing dad for the day, putting your work on the back burner. And that's a funny thing to navigate. I do still feel like we're being relegated to the sidelines slightly. And that's absolutely not mothers' faults. That's society.
Well, there are people that would suggest it is mothers that want to do that. And I'm sure that there individually are specific cases of that. I mean, there always are, aren't there? And as I say, I really don't think that I personally don't believe that it suits anybody the way it is at the moment. The over responsibility that it's given to mothers and the under acknowledgement of the role of the father. I think they sit hand in hand. And that's why I'm really committed to shaking this up and having the voice of men who are clearly not wanting to, be a temporary, I don't know, can't speak for men on this. That's why I've got your voices here.
Sure.
Matt, this has been a lovely, lovely conversation. Thank you very much for coming on and talking about your wonderful family and, your fatherhood.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Thanks, Danusia.
What Matt is talking about isn't radical. It's what so many mothers have done without fanfare for generations. But hearing it from a father matters. Because until men's choices around care are seen as normal, not noble, we'll keep reinforcing the same tired expectations. This isn't about heroics. It's about showing up consistently and refusing to outsource the emotional labour. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and as ever, be kind to yourself.